If you've started playing Magic the Gathering recently or are just maybe not the best at deck building, I hope this video will help because I want to talk to you about some tips on how to improve editing your commander decks. Hi, I'm McAllister with Toasty DIY, and I've done a few videos now on the channel about Magic the Gathering, how to build your first commander deck, and just so you know, this video is not that. This is if you've already done that and hopefully played in a couple games or goldfish it, 5-6 times, and now you think you need to do some edits to it, and we're going to talk about how to do that. So what I have here is my Ariete of the Charmed Apple deck. I've played it one time and I've goldfished it about 5-10 times. And so I'm wanting to go through now and maybe solidify the edits I want to make because I'm going to put it in a card order for another deck that I also want to get cards for, editing a precon. And I'm just going to talk about how I get to the decisions I do. And I think I can do it in a rather efficient way so you don't spend all day just theorizing, unless that's the joy to you. In that case, maybe you don't need this video. But if you are ready to upgrade your edits, let's talk about how to do that. First off, figure out who my commander is so that this makes more sense for the video. This is Ariete of the Charmed Apple. She says that each creature enchanted by an aura you control can't attack you or planeswalkers you control. So I essentially goad them without the attacking portion. They just can't hit me. And at the beginning of your turn, I'll gain life and opponents will lose life equal to the number of auras I control. This is the idea. I'm going to be slinging enchantments around the table, some on mine, some on theirs, and nerfing, buffing, and hopefully not getting attacked back while I gain life. That's the dream, right? So she'll go over here because, of course, she can't be edited out of the deck. And then I've separated this into 3 piles. I have already gone through and picked out my edits, and they're over here. And let's talk about what stays in the not edited pile. And then what, this pile here is just lands. For the sake of right now, I'm going to talk about lands last. So just take them all out of your deck and put them over here. The only important thing to do for lands is make sure that you have enough. When editing your deck, when you're goldfishing or when you're playing, if you see yourself constantly running out of lands and you add in, cultivate to get around that, remember the best form of land ramp is having lands. So 40 lands is what I try to shoot for, and I will usually start the deck that way because it forces me to condense my bit. If you have like 32 lands, then you're way low. So unless you have a trick to get out those lands, like a lot of ramp, 32 is very low. Though in my video where I make a deck, that's what I started with because it helped me learn, and I have a deck that still does very well with just 32. But, there's always a chance that it does very, very bad. So what we have here is, like I said, the edited portion and then the portion that's going to stay. And I want to talk about how we get here. And I think the number one thing you can do to help figure out if you're ready for this step is go through your entire deck, both the portion that these will be together. You'll go through it all, and you'll start separating out ones you think maybe you're willing to let go, but take cards like, let's say I love Stalking Leonin here. Like I was given it by someone I like, and I want to put in this deck no matter what. These are called pet cards. Do yourself a favor and take all the pet cards and put them over here on the side. The reason you're going to do this is because if they can't come out of your deck because you just like them too much, then you need to see that before you start editing, because if my edit pile looks like this, and these are all my pet cards, then I'm editing the deck, but there's no way I'm going to make it likely viable to make my pet cards match these cards unless all of these are support to make the pet cards work. So you need to find out if you're trying to make the deck more just a collection of cards you enjoy or a functional collection of cards. So if you find out that this stack is pretty large, like I need to keep these, then maybe this needs to be supported by this, and these are the edited cards. So what you're either going to make the deck a pet deck or you're going to make it a more competitive deck. And when I say competitive, I just mean tighter in theme and consistency, not necessarily that you're going to play competitive EDH. This video is not for that. So now that you know what deck you're trying to go for, this video is going to be talking about as if we're trying to go for more the consistency portion than the pet deck portion. So a lot of these cards in here were pet cards that I decided to pull for the sake of that. Ones that I was like, I really do like them, but I think I'm willing to let them go, especially these like art lands. I love the art look for the Wilds of Eldraine set, and I really wanted these to work, but they just don't necessarily do my bit as well as I'd hope my bit can be done. So what we'll do and how we decide that is we start looking through all of your cards. And so I'll take a card from maybe the top 3 from each of these. I'll just shuffle them. So I'm going to take the deck of cards that I know I'm going to keep, and I'm going to at least keep for now. And I'm going to take off the top 3, and then I will explain to you out loud my thought process on why this card needs to stay in the deck. And then I will do 3 from the removal pile and tell you why I think they need to go from the deck. So I'll go ahead and just shuffle these up and actually flip them over and draw a random card for each of them as I explain why it should or shouldn't be in the deck. Minimus Containment. So why do I think this card belongs in this deck? Well, I think about what the bit is, and the first thing that we really know is a simple card that can go in the deck is Enchantment Auras. They're going to be the cards I want the most of in this deck, and this one says that I can enchant a non-land permanent. That's almost the exact reason it's in here. It turns a non-land permanent into a treasure artifact, and it is no longer a creature. It just becomes a treasure straight out flat. So this is removal, and the exchanges, they get a treasure, but I can do it to anything for the most part on the board. The idea that I need to destroy lands is pretty low. So non-land permanent, this is a aura that destroys everything that's on bit. It's extremely helpful, and I just, want to use it. It's a common card, and it's cheap, and it goes in the deck. Now, a card that I don't need, Promise of Loyalty. This is a board wipe that says everybody will put a Vow counter on a creature they control and then sacrifice the rest. Each of those creatures' Vow controllers can't, attack me. Honestly, this is possibly on that list of going back in the deck, but right now, I think I want to look for better removal for board wipe. I'd rather get, I keep a creature, but the nice thing about this is, maybe they'll have to keep the creature with one of my auras on it, so that's kind of fun. So it's not like it can't go in this deck. This could totally be my board wipe. But for now, I think I'd rather look to see if I can find something else that might be a more efficient board wipe across the board. If I can get a copy of Farewell for 5 mana, that might just be better because that'll destroy all creatures, enchantments, artifacts, or a selective thing. This will destroy all creatures, and well, I want to have auras, and those attach mostly to creatures. I'll start looking up board wipes, and I'll probably just Google, is there a board wipe for Enchantress decks? And it might be one that says if a creature's enchanted, it does not go. So that means all the enemy ones I have enchanted stay, and all of mine stay, which is really cool if I can find that. And if I can't, I might come back to this card. From the deck of cards that I'm going to keep, I have Spiteful Hexmage. He's a 1-cost human warlock. He says something very simple. When he enters the battlefield, put a cursed roll token attached to target creature you control. A roll token is essentially an enchantment aura. This turns an enchanted creature I own into a 1/1. And honestly, this one's kind of middling. What I like is that he's a 1-cost that can immediately attach a roll token onto somebody, and so it could even be himself, and that means that I get my Enchantress triggers over here. Honestly, upon rereading this, it is a creature you control, which is a lot less valuable to me than I thought it was. I thought it was to anyone. I'm like, he enters for 1, turns somebody to a 1/1. So upon reading that, I may think, actually, surprise, surprise, he goes into the deck of edits that are going. This is one exciting thing to see, which is that I've already edited these 2 decks, and this is still more editing that can be done. That you misread a card, and saying target versus creatures, all creatures, is a very big difference. So in this case, I'm actually going to add that over here. So I'll go ahead and flip another card that's going to get removed, and I have Denethor Capation, Paragon. She's on the kind of removal list because most of my enchantments are very cheap. So the idea that I'm going to get somebody who lets me cast them for cheaper, that isn't really a good body on board. I mean, she has Vigilance and First Strike, which is pretty awesome, but I don't know that I want to pay 3 for her. She's probably like an anti-pet card. I don't really like her as much, and I have her in another deck because I run an equipment deck. So I don't know that I want to see her in another deck. That's less in her theme. She's more like a warrior, and I like it for equipments less than I like it for auras. So she's kind of in the to-go list. On the to-stay list is a classic card for an Enchantress type deck like this for her, which is Clawing Torment. I enchant a creature or an artifact, and as long as it's on a permanent creature, that creature can't block, and as long as it's on anything at all, the person owning it will lose 1 life per turn. So for me, I'd probably clip this onto a Soul Ring, because then I know it'll sit around all game. It's really not worth removing, and the idea that someone's going to remove all enchantments is very low. I feel like enchantment removal is pretty hard for people to have in their hand at any given time. They're probably just going to have to counterspell it when it comes out more than get rid of it afterwards. And then we'll do one last one. This is Stab Wound. Once again, this is an aura enchantment, and I said earlier that these are what you're looking for in this deck. Well, why don't I like this one? Well, enchanted creature gets -2/-2, and at the beginning of upkeep, enchanted creature of that controller loses 2 life. So this seems just like Clawing Torment, and it's that Wilds of Eldraine art that I like. So why am I getting rid of this one but keeping Clawing Torment? Well, this one can only go onto a creature. And my brain says, well, how many creatures are going to have more than 2 health? And, they're going to want to keep it after it gets that low. Really, they're probably just going to run this body into someone else, and it's going to fall right off. So I'd rather have an enchantment that's more consistent. And I know there are some enchantments out there that say when the creature dies, returns enchantment to the field or things like that. So I'd rather make room for something that's going to stick around a little bit easier. Like I said, this one goes on to probably someone's Soul Ring or Artifact, and it'd be a funny little play, and no one's really going to fault me for having done that. On a card like this, I try to think, how mad would someone be to get this equipped to them? And on this one, I'd say like out of 5, probably like a 2 to a 3, depending on their board state and who I put it on. And with that in mind, I have a lot of cards that are going to get me a lot more attention. So this one's just not worth running up my, goodwill with the table. So in general, that's all you have to do is just keep flipping over cards and looking at the idea of what you have. And honestly, in the beginning, it's nice to do that. And another way you can do this is start separating out cards by type of what they do and seeing if there's a problem you're having. And usually the types that I go by are from the cube method, which are removal, protection, card draw, ramp, your main theme, your supporting theme, support cards for those, and then staples for your color. So if you want to look through, I could start saying, Valorious Stances, target creature gains indestructible to end of turn, or destroy a creature with toughness 4 or greater. For now, I could say this is protection or removal, but as I start going through, Felwar Stone is ramp. This is my main theme and enchantment aura. This is removal, and this is removal. These are ramp. This is card draw. This is removal. Oh, well, look, I'm getting a lot of removal. So maybe I want to say Valorious Stance is actually, I really want to have it for the sake of being protection. So now when I see it in my deck, I'm less thinking of using it to remove something and more thinking, well, I have a lot of removal, so I'll probably wait for using this as removal until I have to, because there's a chance I'm going to pull a removal card. And you just kind of keep going through, oh, well, this is the thing, and they can double dip in these categories, but usually you find out if you have a weak category, you take one out of the other one and move it to the weak category, so if I see cooped up, I probably want it as the exile thing more than I want the aura sitting around. That's kind of how I look at this, because a lot of my auras are kind of like removal, so I probably need more card draw or protection, because people are going to want to remove my auras, and I need to keep them around to do my bit, or at least keep my commander in play to do my bit. So that's how I generally do my editing of the creature base and spell base. So when you've gotten that all done, what I recommend is if you're not ready yet to do the final edits, just tuck them back to back and keep them in your box. And that way you'll know this half of the deck, you'll recognize all the cards you said you're going to remove on one side, and you'll just go, cool, these ones will go over there, and I will remove them later. My last bit on that is that a lot of these cards, when you're going through your removal, the reason they're being removed is they're just not effective enough. And the answer is there might be something out there better. So when you're looking up trying to find, you'll probably find cards that you like more or better than what you have. And maybe you play the weaker version because it's cheaper in price, and that's okay. These cards can totally go back in your deck. When I look at Vow of Duty, they gain +2/+2, vigilance, and can't attack me. That's very helpful to someone else. And there's no guarantee when my commander's gone that, this is super helpful to me. So, they can't attack me, so it kind of protects me on that end. And this is a way to gain curry favor. But I don't know if I love it, so I'm going to remove it for now, and it might go in the back of the box, which is where I keep a lot of pet cards. I will have the deck normal, and then I will unsleeve cards that I'm not sure if I want them out of the deck, and that is a good place for them to stay. So for my land base, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. What I'll typically do is when I start making the deck, I'll just throw in 40 basics, half and half of all the colors. And then I'll look at my distribution and change it based on that. So if I have, a 60% blue deck and a 60%, 40% white deck, then I'll change the land base to be that math. And then I go through, add all my little dual lands in. So as far as lands go, this is kind of my basic strategy of lands. So I want to have some colorless lands that do some bits that are close to what I like to do. In the case of Demolition Field, this destroys a target land. I think this is funny. I could maybe possibly get rid of someone's Triome in a landfall deck or something like that, mostly for shits and giggles. This is Temple of the False God, just a fun throw in. If you look through colorless lands that give you colorless, they always give you a little effect out of it, and find some that are cool, that do something neat that maybe you'll enjoy doing. They kind of work like a spell or instant on the field. Usually you pay for them, but you get something out of it. I have Ash Barrens because it has basic land cycling, and then I have Scavenger Grounds. If you're ever not sure and you want a colorless one, Scavenger Grounds is great because it just exiles all graveyards. So if someone in your group is playing graveyards, you have a way to get rid of it, even if it's your only one, because building in graveyard hate or counters for other people can be frustrating if you're trying to build them all. And sometimes, you're not playing CEDH. If your deck's weak against that, maybe just play a different deck that day. Because if you're going to lose against it and it's not going to be fun for you, then do that. Escape Tunnel lets you go search for a land card. It's a fetch land. So these fetch lands are always nice to fix your mana base if something's gone wrong. And so that's kind of what this is. But I'm in a 2-color deck. Fixing my mana base is not really going to be a problem. So I don't have a lot of filter lands or other types in here. I do have 1 artifact land. Why? I just happen to have it, so I threw it in here, but it works practically like a basic land. But it counts as an artifact for the sake of Metalcraft or things like that. So we have what are called slow lands. I don't know if these are all called slow lands, to be honest, but any land that comes in tapped, I consider slow. And I have a few of these just to make sure I have some dual lands in the thing. The thriving ones are great. If you're playing a deck with more than 1 color, look for the thriving lands. These are lands that come in. They just are super simple. They say add for 1 mana and choose another color to have them add. So they're dual lands that you decide the dual colors. So go get all the thrivings. They're like 30 cents. Get them for all the colors that you have in your deck, and then that way you have a white thriving, you have a blue thriving, whatever. And then whenever you drop one of them, you just pick your other color, and boom, free dual land. It comes in tap, though. It doesn't give you much benefit, so up to you. It's really good in like 3 or 4 color decks, in my opinion, but I like them. Forlorn Flats, simple. Dual land does something when it enters, cool. Dual land does something when it enters. Dual land that might enter untapped based on my life. Almost multi-purpose all colors deck. The odds someone's not going to have white or black is going to be pretty low. So whenever you have these Uncharted Haven or Exotic Orchard types, it's really nice. For the lands that I think are like the best, that almost every deck has something like it in it. Exotic Orchard, produce a mana that opponent can produce. Like I said, at minimum, this is colorless. At best, this is all the colors I need. It's like a secondary command tower. Command tower, of course, every deck. This one, I can flip it to be either color, so it's mana fixing on the go. This one can enter untapped and produce what I need. And, can create creature tokens in case I need them. We got this one, which is just, a lucky pull I got. It's a Bonds land, which, these are more expensive. It's like a $15 land that just enters untapped as long as I have 2 or more controller opponents, which it's commander, you almost always will. And then, a damage land, it's going to hurt me, but, I can pay a life to add, and then I can sacrifice it to draw a card if I need to. And then Bleachbone Verge, $5 land from like Aether Drift. The Verges are 2 colors, but you can only tap the other one if you have a basic land out. Considering these are all these are all my basic lands, so the Verge will almost always be able to tap immediately. Mana fixing and mana bases are pretty simple. The answer is have more lands. And then after that, decide what lands you want. So just load in all the basics you need and then go for it. So I hope that this was somewhat helpful to you all. This is how I go through and do my edits for the deck. How I pick out the cards that are going to go in their place. Well, I typically look at the card I'm removing and I think, why am I removing you? And I think it's usually because I'm like, I would rather have a card that does this, but better. Does that exist? And while you're out there searching for that but better, you will run into other cards. And when you add those cards in, well, guess what? Some of the cards in the keep section will become, whoa, wait, this would be, I don't need that card as much anymore because I much more rely on this thing I'm doing or that thing I'm doing. But you can only work in this box so much. So do this round of edits, then maybe return to this video or, your own thoughts after you've played a game or 2 of real Magic with your friends. Let them know you're working on the deck. Don't play don't have them play their most powerful decks if you're trying to learn, or just let them notify, it's a game for fun that you're trying to improve your deck. So let's not destroy you this time, or at least can we play some maybe bracket rank 2 or whatever you want to say in order to keep the power level at your table consistent with the game you're trying to play at the moment. And maybe you pop off and then they're mad at you because you actually made a really cracked deck, and that'd be funny, wouldn't it? So with that all said and done, thank you all for watching. This has been McAllister with OCDIY. Like, comment, subscribe. Anything you all can do to help the channel is always appreciated. But if you just want to chill and watch this video, well then, peace.